Welcome, Gunrunner.
I've actually covered the vintage Dragon 32 computer on this channel a few times now, most notably my Amazing Facts episode on the Home Micro, as well as my more recent video looking at my own Dragon that I picked up quite recently. But I'd held fire on doing a games related video on the computer until I'd become a bit more familiar with its surprisingly vast library. And in actual fact, I'm still very much on that voyage of discovery, because no sooner had I compiled a list of games that were worthy of inclusion in an Amazing Facts episode, I found a load more. So there'll definitely be a follow-up to this video sometime in the future. Just to give you a very small bit of background to the Dragon 32, for those who don't know anything about it, you really should go and watch the two videos I just mentioned, which I've linked down in the description for you. It's an 8-bit computer produced by historic Welsh toy company Metoy, most famous for their corgi cars, that was very closely based on the American Tandy Colour computer. Released in 1982, it was one of the early leaders in the UK home computer market and was most notable for its advanced Motorola 6809 CPU, but was hampered by its rather unusual graphical capabilities. This didn't stop people making games for it, of course, and it was well supported by many of the major UK software houses, including the likes of Ocean, Virgin Games, Houston, Software Projects and Mastertronic, giving me plenty of games to choose from here. Now with that rather brief but important intro out the way, it's time to get gaming as we take a look at 10 amazing Dragon 32 exclusives.
He's been hunted in the arcades, but he's escaped. Now Hunchback has jumped into home computers. Ocean's fabulous new Hunchback brings you the authentic arcade action. Jump over knights, swing over the fiery pit, outfox fireballs, dodge arrows, rescue Esmeralda, and it's the hairiest, scariest video game in 400 years. Hunchback from Ocean, just one of a top-selling range of game programs on cassette for most popular micros.
Let's start off here with one of the games that very much introduced me to the Dragon 32, and the reason for that is because this game was created by one Wayne J. Smithson, who I've interviewed several times over the years as he went on to have an amazing career in the industry after cutting his teeth on the Dragon 32, including working for the likes of Psygnosis, Atari and Sumo Digital. The game itself, not to be confused with the latter Atlantis Software title of the same name, is a very interesting one too, because it's an arcade style scrolling platformer on a system that has very few games of this type. In fact, the arcade part of that last sentence is key, because it's very clear that Super Kid was inspired by the hugely popular Sega coin-op Wonder Boy. That name makes a lot more sense now, doesn't it? The gameplay is virtually the same here, as you run along killing or avoiding enemies, jumping over hazards and picking up new weapons and health as you go. It's not just a great game though, it's also a very impressive one on a technical level too, as Super Kid features great use of colour, parallax scrolling, amazing animation, stunning title music and even a smattering of digitised speech. This is quite easily one of the most impressive games I've played on the computer, and if you own a Dragon, or indeed its near cousin the Tandy Coco, this is a game you need to have in your collection. Super Kid. Now, here's a game that should already be familiar to regular viewers of my channel, because when I looked at my own Dragon 32 computer a few months back, this was the game I used to show you it working. Starship Comedian looks a lot like a pretty bog standard Galaxian style shoot 'em up at first glances, but the gameplay is actually very different, and also something quite original too. At the top of the screen you will see 3 bright red alien heads moving back and forth dropping bombs, and you'll notice that these bombs come in 2 colours, blue and yellow. Your ship starts at the bottom of the screen but can move anywhere around it and is also coloured blue. However, one press of the fire button changes this to yellow, and this is the key to this game, because you have to try and catch as many bombs as possible by constantly changing colour to match them. As the game progresses you will also notice red satellites that start to appear too, and these cannot be eliminated. You have to try and avoid them as they chase you down. Along the bottom of the screen is a blue line, and this acts like a shield, so if you're behind it you can't be killed, and this is also where you start off. There are 9 difficulty levels to work through here, with the highest being nigh on impossible. This is a perfect high score competition title that feels like it came straight from an early 80s arcade. And speaking of my own Dragon 32 review, when I made that video I spoke a bit about the computer's excellent port of Berserk, but quite a few people mentioned another game I should acquire instead down in the comments called Android Attack, or to use its full title, Talking Android Attack, because yes, this one actually has speech, when the port of Berserk doesn't. It also has a number of small differences from the Stern Electronics game too, more than enough to qualify it for this video in my opinion, so I better explain what those are. An update of an earlier Tandy-colour computer game called Robot Attack, this features the exact same concept as its inspiration, as you guide a soldier through each maze-like room, shooting all the enemies, but the way you succeed is slightly different. Although there are still electric walls to watch out for, you no longer need to worry about the evil Otto, giving you more time to complete your mission. Once you shoot a robot, they collapse into a pile of scrap, but after a short while they will reanimate into a ghost that is not only more lethal, but could also move through walls. So you effectively need to shoot each enemy twice to move forward. Other differences include the ability to jump and duck enemy fire, move through walls by sacrificing a life, and there are also bonus objects you can collect too. Android Attack is a must-have for all you Berserk fans. One of my biggest surprises when I was working my way through the Dragon 32 games library to make this list was the discovery of this game, the rather generically named Formula 1. The first thing that shocked me here was the release date, coming very late in the computer's life, in fact the very same year it was discontinued, 1987. The second revelation was that this game is basically Namco's amazing arcade game Final Lap Twin on the Dragon, except it came out 2 years before that coin-op even existed. And that's not all, because not only is this F1 simulator a split-screen 2-player affair, which itself is pretty much unheard of on the Dragon, it also comes complete with a track designer so you can build your own and then race around them, save them and share them with your friends. If you can't be bothered making one of your own though, you can of course speed around one of the existing tracks, all modelled on real F1 circuits. Other awesome features include name entry, a GUI-like interface, mini-maps and incredibly detailed high-resolution graphics, which not only look fantastic, they also give a great sense of speed too. The sound is a little disappointing though, and you can lose a race by crashing into your opponent, which is a bit weird, but honestly these are pretty minor quibbles. I haven't actually found that many racing games for Dragon 32 thus far, but Formula 1 is by far the best of them. If you've followed my Amazing Exclusives series closely, then you'll know that I don't usually include homebrew games here, mainly because I'm trying to show reasons why the respective machine would have been worth owning back in the day. But every now and again I make an exception, and right here is one such example, as I've been aware of Glove for many years now, going right back to when I ran the Homebrew Heroes Facebook page, group, magazine and forum. By now you can probably see already that this game is indeed a clone of the Atari arcade game Gauntlet, with that name being a type of armoured glove of course, and that's what first drew me to it, as I'm a huge fan of Ed Logg's iconic dungeon crawler. Glove certainly isn't very original, it's almost an exact copy of the Atari arcade game where you make your way around each level fighting monsters, collecting treasure, opening doors by finding keys, and using magic potions to defeat death before you jump into the exit for more of the same. The only real differences are a limited character select, you can only be a mage or caveman, more linear levels, and smaller enemy hordes. So yeah, Glove is a somewhat simplified version of Gauntlet, but a very good one too, with some great graphics, good sound effects, and even a simultaneous 2-player mode, which is very unusual for a Dragon 32 game. Like a lot of early 8-bit computers, the Dragon has an awful lot of arcade clones, but unlike much of the competition, it actually has some amazingly faithful ones. Probably the only computer that rivals it for competent coin-op copies is the BBC Micro. As well as the many more obvious Pac-Man clones like Cyclops, Scarfman and Ghost Attack, you'll find a nice little title called Cave Hunter, which was released on cartridge by Dragon Data themselves. This game initially looks like just another lame wannabe, but you soon discover that the gameplay here is actually quite different. You have a very similar looking maze, enemies that chase you, and 4 power pellets to turn the tables on them. But there are no pills to collect as you move around the maze here. Instead, you are tasked with grabbing 4 gold bars from the bottom of the screen that need to be deposited in the vault at the top. You can only carry one at a time, and obviously those pesky enemies will be trying to stop you. Cleverly, they've kept the gold bars and power pellets well apart too, so you can't just grab one and then the other. With each level, the enemies get faster and more intelligent, making your task harder. Visually, this game is certainly nothing special, but at least it's colourful, I suppose, and the sound is pretty average too. But the gameplay manages to keep you coming back for more, which is the most important thing. From one maze game to another, but a very different one indeed, because rather than being an arcade style game, Incentive's Backtrack is a rather impressive top-down arcade adventure. The plot here is rather sinister, because it tells us that you have been kidnapped and forced to take part in a cruel experiment. Sounds a bit like the Saw movies, doesn't it? Thankfully, this isn't quite as horrific as those films, as this particular challenge involves negotiating a series of maze-like dungeons, trying to find the keys and escape before your willpower runs out. And that mention of willpower is important here, because that is measured in a bar on the left-hand side of the screen, acting a bit like a timer. I say timer, but there's also one of those too, so you also need to escape before those seconds run out. What makes this harder still is that these dungeons are infested with snakes that don't much like your presence. And in another cruel turn of fate, the torturer has left a map somewhere in the maze which you might think is helpful, but looking at it quickly drains your timer, so you'll have to use it sparingly if at all. There are also some cherries to collect too, which keep your willpower strong. The graphics in Backtrack are absolutely terrific, with a great pseudo 3D viewpoint and nice use of colour too. This is a rather inventive and engrossing arcade adventure that's also a mapper's dream. The name of this title might sound like an adventure game, but rather surprisingly, it's actually an arcade-style vertically scrolling shoot 'em up, not a genre you really come across on the Dragon too often, as the computer was disappearing from the market just as games of this type became really popular. The late 1986 release date says a lot about that, and also the reason why this game isn't better known, as most Dragon 32 owners have moved on by that point. The arcade influences are evident from the moment you boot the game up here, as it goes into an attract mode and then shows you the high scores, something I certainly haven't seen in any other Dragon game. Once you start, you'll see the Tarte light display down the centre of the screen, which you might think is there to make it more arcade authentic, but it's more likely that they did this to save the load on the CPU. Landscapes scroll past below you as you shoot the enemy aircraft out of the skies, and these can be interacted with too, as not only are they ground-based foes to deal with, there are also buildings that you need to destroy to release crystals that need to be collected. The visuals here might be in monochrome, but they're high resolution, scroll really smoothly, and feature tons of detail too. The audio is perhaps a little disappointing, but it's not completely awful. There's no doubting Lucifers Kingdom's status as a true top-tier Dragon title. Another game from my old friend Wayne J. Smithson, and another one that is very much inspired by a more popular game from somebody else. In this case, legendary platformer Jet Set Willy, which also got a great port to the Dragon 32 of course. It has to be said that the plagiarism here is pretty blatant, with not just very similar looks, but also near identical game mechanics too. You must guide our hero, Gordon, and for those that might not know, Gordon Bennett is a quaint English phrase to signify surprise or shock, with some interesting origins that are well worth looking up, through each room of a danger-infested mansion, collecting the flashing objects. There are enemies that bob around the screen, usually in set patterns, platforms that fall away when you walk on them, ones that move, dangerous spikes, and strange tractor beams that pull you up or down and can be used like elevators. Most of these have been borrowed from Jet Set Willy 2 of course, but there are also some original features like those tractor beams I just mentioned. You can only escape this hell-ridden house by collecting all the cargo, as it's called here, and this is far from easy because as well as those hazards, you'll also die if you fall too far. The visuals here use the Dragon's high resolution monochrome mode and look really good. There's also some decent sound effects too, so if you like challenging platformers, then you'll love Gordon Bennett. I've looked at quite a few technically impressive games on this list thus far, and some that were definitely breaking boundaries too. But I think I saved the best until last, because you can't fail to be blown away by the Phantom Slayer. Remember the classic id Software FPS Heretic? Well, this is that game if it was made in 1982 for an 8-bit computer. Originally published for the Tandy Coco the year before by Med Systems, it was brought over to Europe by the awesome Micro deal, and we can be very thankful for that, because it's a really unique experience for the Dragon indeed. I mean, who would have expected to find a first-person shooter on this list? In the game you move around a 3D maze, hunting down the phantoms and then killing them. The mazes are randomly generated, meaning no game is ever the same, and can be defined before you start to make them easier or harder. Each maze also contains teleports that show you a map of your surroundings, including the positions of any phantoms, before putting you right back in the middle of the labyrinth. Each phantom will take more hits to destroy, so you have to take them out before they manage to make contact. The 3D visuals are both fast and very smooth, up there with the very best on the computer, and the audio is very good too, and it also plays really well. As one of the very earliest FPS games, Phantom Slayer is an incredible and often quite scary experience.
Have you heard about this really different software magazine called Input? It's a weekly course that program by program will help you get the most from your computer, and it's designed specially for many of the leading computers. Input's clear instructions will show you how to use a simple 4-next loop to create clever routines, and week by week will improve your programming skills so you can use your computer both practically and imaginatively. Oh, very clever. Input. Learn to program for fun and the future.
And there runs up my look at 10 amazing Dragon 32 exclusives. But which of these great games were you most impressed with? Or do you have some suggestions of your own that I can cover in a follow-up video sometime in the future? We always love to hear the thoughts of you and my audience, so please get typing in that comment section. Before I go though, I must thank all of my loyal patrons and YouTube members for continuing to support my channel and make videos like this possible. However, I must give special thanks to the following people in particular for their much appreciated pledges: D. Vaughan, Albert Davis, Richard Baker, Martin Wiggins, Peter Grantham, Bernard Santu, Mins, Classic Gamer 74, Josh Hartman, Daniel Skronsky, Ben P. Stein, Tabby Kitson, Grady Haynes, Paul Daniel, Seth A. Robinson, Climatorn, Carl Olsen, Mark Strickland, Big Chuzzle, Carl Cloping, Black Siren, John Alberino, Krispy Kreme, Justin Cooney, Luke Boynton, Sarah B., Richard Tate, Tailboy 2011, Thiago Silva, James Welch, Wesley K, and Electron Star Collapse. If you also want to help support this channel, you can now join as a member for as little as £2 a month, where you'll get access to exclusive videos and updates and much more. Just click the button on my community page to get started. My Patreon is also still available if you prefer to support me in other ways too. I've been the Laird, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.